There is another new lineup at Highfield Boats, marking a further expansion into the fiberglass market. Following the success of the ADV7 crossover, these are two new Escape model fiberglass ribs from Highfield. Look familiar? Well, they are closely related to their sport model siblings, but they are indeed all new boats. Let's take a closer look, starting with the 650. Starting forward, we find a composite bow step, covered in the latest 3-ply marine matte EVA foam. And if you look close, you'll notice there's a laser engraving on all of the marine matte coming on the Escape models. Now, of course, we have recessed nav lights, a recessed anchor roller, and a 6.5-inch cleat that folds down to prevent your toes from catching on it when you're boarding from the bow. Now check out this new luxury upholstery made with Spradling vinyl. You'll notice the same pattern stamped into the vinyl now, and that theme will flow through the entire boat. And it's really hard to describe how nice the Spradling vinyl feels. You've got to feel it yourself. So if you get to a showroom, you want to check this out. It really is premium stuff. At this size, you do get a full anchor locker, which is nice because if you've got chain, you don't want it dragging around the deck. And of course, in typical Highfield fashion, there is always storage compartments loaded all over the boat. Not massive, but a great spot for life jackets or, some safety gear. You will find this heavy 3-ply marine mat from bow to stern, but also you'll find that it is snapped in. So it is removable for really easy cleaning. And this is handy if it's salty and you just want to rinse the boat, but you want to get underneath the marine mat. Now I do like the forward-facing jump seat, but I also like there's 2 access points underneath the console. The backrest flips up on 2 struts and keeps itself open. It's not going to fall on you. So if you have something you just want to get out quick, this is the easiest way to do it. But of course, the entire seat flips up, again on 2 stainless gas struts, holds itself open, and now you've got full access. Now there is a locker in the floor, but you do have to raise the seat to fully open it. And a lot of boats, they just ignore this locker. It's too difficult to accommodate. But just look at how much space you have for items you're not going to access all the time. Now these are the kinds of things that you can do with fiberglass without adding a ton of cost to the boat. It doesn't take a sharp eye to notice that the console and the T-top are a lot larger than the previous sport models. And in Highfield fashion, you can see how big the handrails are for making your way throughout the cockpit. That just shows you how much a big water boat this really is. Now a bigger console also means a bigger helm. And with Mercury's partnership, you're going to find a standard Simrad MFD. And you'll notice on the helm, it's big enough you could add a second MFD if you want. But the standard option is a proper cell phone holder with a charging circuit and a Fusion stereo head unit. So for a boat of this size, this is pretty well equipped. And in North America, you're going to find lots and lots of cup holders, which I really appreciate because we've always got a bottle of water out when we're on the road. In between the console cup holders, you will now find a second inductive charging pad. Now, Highfield knows you can never have too much storage, so they've really thought about putting storage spots in as many places as possible. So you have an overhead storage compartment up here to store loose stuff and light stuff. You have a nice little glove box here, because I always want a spot to put my big fat wallet when I'm underway and I don't want it accidentally flying out of the boat. And inside there's a charging port as well if you have more devices you want to charge beyond just the initial cell phone. And a small little flexible cubby here that's held closed with Velcro. So whatever you put in there, could be the screen, cover, is not going to go flying away. Now those of you might also notice how familiar these seats, at least the shape of them. These also have the Spradling vinyl, but they are side bolstered to prevent movement side to side when you get into a really choppy sea state. And I love how much bolstering there is side to side. And of course, they have flip up, flip down leg bolsters as well to make it really easy to stand. Because when it gets rough, you probably don't want to be sitting down. And there's no sense of wasting the storage space underneath the seat console, so you've got a nice waterproof access hatch to stash even more stuff under the console seat. And on the aft end, you get a nice 3-person wide bench and a flip-up table that you just pull on, and it stays up on its own strut. Not a bad spot for snacks on anchor, or even if you're just cruising around at low speeds. And notice the big, heavy-duty handholds for passengers. Highfield knows that even in the back of the boat, you want some stability if the seas get rough. Notice the marine matte EVA foam extends through the entire cockpit and right out to the end of the swim steps. Now, all Escapes in North America will come with the arch, but this is a prototype boat, so this arch is probably going to change just a little bit, especially the tow point, which will definitely get moved to the aft end of the arch. Now, I really do like Highfield swim steps. You can see how strong they are, and they make boarding and reboarding much easier when you have a 4-step telescopic ladder on the port side. And for those of you that are in saltwater, well, there is an onboard shower built into the 650 and the 750. So if you need to rinse off, it's not going to be a problem. Maximum horsepower for the 650 is 200, and here we have Mercury's wonderful 200 V6. But before we take this boat out for a ride, let's take a closer look at the 750 we have parked right beside us. Now, the first thing you'll notice is this 750 really pops. And the second thing you're going to notice right away is just how big this bow step is, which is also covered in 3-layer marine matte with the same laser engraving we find on the 650. Now, just like all our Highfields, everything about the step is as flush mount as possible so that it makes it easier to access the water or the beach from the bow without tripping over cleats. So the cleats are recessible, the anchor roller is flat and flush mount. I mean, just look at this anchor in place. You're not going to trip over it. Now, one thing that really does separate the 750 from the 650 is there is an optional windlass on this boat. No more lifting a heavy anchor with your back. They even included a little chain lock. So when this is down, there's no way that that anchor can automatically deploy by itself. And just like the 650, there is storage everywhere. Under the bow seat, and you'll notice there's a nice little step here as well. And the hatch in the cockpit floor does not need the seat lifted to access it. So it's a little bit easier to access than on the 650. Just like the 650, the marine matte flooring is snapped in for easy cleaning, and console storage can be accessed by lifting the backrest or the entire seat. And part of what gives this white boat its pop are the darker colored vinyl seats. And you might be a little concerned about, ooh, black in the sun could be hot, but it's not, because this is Spradling's very expensive Cool Touch vinyl, which does not get as hot as normal dark vinyls do in the sun. It's actually quite comfortable. In fact, this has been in the sun for about 4 hours. Amazing. So with Spradling's Cool Touch vinyl, you get the benefits of the high contrast color without the disadvantages of all that heat. And you still get that soft, luxurious feel, and you can see it's got a kind of a nice carbon fiber pattern to it. Now you can tell how much bigger the 750 is, especially in the beam, when you notice they've mounted the console in the center, which means you have the same amount of room to walk around either side of it. The 650, you can really only walk around the port side. But it does have the same big console. So that means you get those big hand grips, you get that big large dash, you get the same Simrad screen with the Mercury, all of the same features you'll find on the 650, you'll find on the 750, but in an optionally different color. If you option the windlass, you will find controls for it at the helm. And if you want to get fancy, there is an option for RGB LED lighting in the speakers and courtesy lights. Another big difference with the 750 besides just the space is the aft layout. So here we have a 4-person wide bench and an aft facing bench as well, and an optional fridge should you decide you want to keep the drinks cool without a cooler. And just like the 650, all North American Escapes are going to come with an arch, but this is a prototype arch. So there are going to be a few small changes, including the high tow point is going to move to the back side. And just like the 650, that beautiful EVA marine matte foam runs all the way to the back, right to the edge of the aft swim steps. You get the same 2 swim steps, and you get a 4-step telescoping ladder. But on the power department, the 750 can take more horsepower. And here we have Mercury's 250 horsepower Verado V8. And I'll tell you something, the V8 has quite a bit more punch than the smaller V6. Now might be a good time to talk about the elephant in the room. Well, at least the one that floats. Isn't Highfield an aluminum specialist? So what's with the fiberglass hull? Well, that may be true, but they're also a fiberglass specialist. Think about it. all the big console and most T-top components have been fiberglass for years. Got a GT? Fiberglass console. Sport console? Fiberglass. Got a big Helm seat with storage? Probably fiberglass. But surely not the hull, right? Well, why not? I, for one, am all for having choice. Personally, I love how the fiberglass hull rides and feels. Fiberglass tends to absorb a little more vibration than aluminum, whether it's from the chop or from the motor itself. So you get a little bit smoother ride. And that doesn't really matter much until you start chasing horizons. Now, as you can see, these massive 23-inch tubes, which are on both boats, provide plenty of lift buoyancy, but also are designed to keep you very dry. And one of the great things about the sport models and the escape models is just how dry the ride is. But beyond just the ride and feel, how does it perform? How does it work with this engine? Well, I can tell you something. I really do like the Verado V8. It just has so much low-end torque. Just check out how responsive it is when I nail the throttle. And just like the sport models, this hull digs in when you turn the wheel. But I think the most impressive thing right off the start is that Verado. Not only is it exceptionally quiet, in fact, when you stop the boat, you almost forget it's running. It sounds like a cliche, but it is that quiet. But the hull, the tracking, and the turning, check this out. So what about the 650? So to the 750 and the 650, and you might want to know if you're on the fence between the two, what are the differences? Well, certainly size. The 750 is definitely a bigger boat. But the 650 is a little more compact, and they share the same 24-degree dead rise hull, which means in the waves, they're going to perform very similar to each other, albeit the longer hull is going to have a little more comfort. But I like the 650 because of its nimble nature. And of course, if you've got a garage limit on trailering and parking, you might want to consider a smaller boat for that. If space is your requirement, definitely the 750. But I do like how the 650 handles. It just feels livelier and a little more nimble, and it tends to lean over and bank a little bit more in the corners. But other than that, the hulls are very similar. The tubes are the same 23-inch Hypalon. They both keep you very high and dry. The seats have the same aggressive side bolstering, and of course all of that comfort. Now these aren't cool touch, but they're not a dark color, so they don't really need to be cool touch. And I do just love the look of these tan seats. Kind of reminds me of the interior of a Ferrari. Other than that, same console, same size dash, same instruments. There is one big difference. It's out back. The V6200 is an awesome engine. In fact, if fuel economy is your worry and range, the V6200 is probably the better choice. But it just doesn't pack the punch of the mighty Verado V8. I'll show you. Check this out. It's not that the 200 is slow. We manage 52 miles per hour, but the V8 definitely hits harder. I mean, perhaps the best thing about these boats is just how much fun they are. You know, like, there's a lot of boats that provide comfort. Some of them are just cruisers, but these are so sporty. You can really enjoy having fun with them, like putting them through their paces. Love them. Or just slow down and enjoy the view. With 2 new models to choose from, Highfield's fiberglass family is growing.